In today's video, I'm going to break down what I think the Patriots should do with the number 3 overall pick. Obviously, this is the first time in many years that they have picked this high up in the draft, and I've seen so many fans talking about what their thoughts are, but I want to go ahead and give mine. And I think that there's a lot that can happen. I want to just break down all the options. So option number 1 is take a quarterback, of course. Number 2 is going to be to take a different position at the number 3 overall pick, whether that's wide receiver or offensive tackle. That seems to be the only 2 options that would really be there outside of quarterback that would really even make sense for the team. Also, they could trade down or trade up. I don't see them trading up unless they really like one or 2 of the prospects that are there. So let's say they like Drake May and Caleb Williams, but they don't like Jaden Daniels, for instance, okay? So they would want to pick either second or first in the draft, probably second, in order to make sure they can get one or the other of those 2 guys. If they like all 3 quite a bit, then they could just sit tight at number 3 because, of course, they will have one of the 3 of those at number 3 available to them. So there is some things like that at play, even if they plan on taking a quarterback. Of course, it appears likely that the Bears will take Caleb Williams. So at number 2, Drake May and Jaden Daniels would be available. I think that the Commanders will likely take Jaden Daniels out of the 2, but of course they could take Drake May. Jaden Daniels is my favorite quarterback prospect in the draft. I will go out and say it. I like him more than Drake May, and I even like him more than Caleb Williams. So there is that for sure. But I think I even like Drake May more than Caleb Williams. I would say Jaden Daniels and Drake May are my 2 favorites. They both have high qualities. We'll talk about that in a second. Of course, they could take a different position. Likely that would be wide receiver if they sit tight. That would either be Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. Both of those guys seem to be really good. I'm very doubtful that they would take an offensive tackle at number 3. There's a lot of talent at offensive tackle, and none are really that much better than the rest. I would say there's about 3 or 4 good offensive tackle prospects. So they could likely trade down to, let's say, the 10th pick and still get a really premier offensive tackle and likely pick up multiple future first-round picks. So that would be ideal if that is the way they want to go. But honestly, if it was me and if I had my way, which we know that's not how it works, but hypothetically speaking, I would pick a quarterback. That is what I would do with number 3. And of course, that's the most popular choice, but there is quite a few people that think we should take Marvin Harrison Jr. That seems to be the second most popular idea, and everything else kind of follows those 2. Now, let me break down why I would not take a different position or trade down from this pick, really. My main reasoning for that is because we are at the number 3 overall pick. The plan moving forward and the expectations should be that we are not going to be this high in the draft again. Okay? If we are, it is a total failure. So the plan moving forward and the expectations, whether unrealistic or not, should be to pick your quarterback here while you are here because you will not be here in the future. If that's not the plan, then they are planning for failure. So keep that in mind. That is my kind of rationale there. And also looking at next year's potential quarterback prospects, it is nowhere near as strong as this year. So if we don't take one this year, then moving forward, there's probably not going to be as strong of talent in next season's draft. So likely we would be looking at 2026 at least for the next time that there is this premier of quarterback talent. So that is all pretty good reasoning to take your guy in this year's draft. We're already there. We don't have to trade up. And this year happens to be a really strong quarterback year as far as draft prospects. You have 4 quarterbacks that are likely to go in the top 10. That's obviously going to be Caleb Williams, Drake May. Also, talking about Jaden Daniels, as I talked about earlier, that's my favorite of all of them. And then also J.J. McCarthy is likely going to go in the top 10 as well. It's kind of reminiscent of the year that we took Mac Jones. It's very reminiscent of that year. It's also reminiscent of the year that Josh Allen came out of the draft. I remember Josh Rosen was in that draft. Sam Darnold was in that draft as well, Baker Mayfield. So those are some of those years where there is multiple strong quarterback prospects. That is similar to what I expect from this one. The tough thing is, again, 4 quarterbacks coming out in the top 10, you have to kind of expect that likely 2 of them will underperform, and then 1 or 2 of them will be that guy, right? So it's all about picking correctly, and we might not. That is just a realistic expectation to have. We might not pick the right guy. That might not go well, but it is a risk that you have to take while you're there. It's kind of a win-win. We either get our guy this year, or if it doesn't work out that way, likely, again, we're in the top 5 next year. And even though it's not as ideal as picking this year, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a good quarterback there. There could be, and we could be in position to get them as well. So that just has to be the mentality here. Even if we got Marvin Harrison Jr., I suspect that what this would do, for better and for worse, it would be kind of a double-edged sword. It would improve our team significantly. I think he is a generational wide receiver. I think he's instantly going to be a star, similar to some of the quarterback, or the better yet, the wide receiver prospects that we've seen in recent years. And I also think that we do have enough talent there to improve this upcoming season. I do suspect that we are going to improve this upcoming season regardless, just because of the returning talent. Also, some free agent moves that I think were really, really smart. They kind of sat tight and signed our guys and kept them on the team. And also with the acquisition of a player like Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Mac Jones leaving. You know, I think Mac Jones was a failed experiment. I think everybody knows that by now. That's kind of just the truth of the matter. And it's unfortunate. I liked Mac Jones. I thought that there was some potential there, but he did not live up to it. And that's just how it goes sometimes. Also, Jacoby Brissett. I think that's an instant upgrade at the quarterback position. Let's say he starts this season. I think you're getting a pretty consistently good quarterback play. I don't suspect he'll have 3 or 4 touchdown games or anything, but he will be enough to actually improve the team and give us a little bit of consistency at the QB position. The bigger unknown is going to be the tackle position, but I'm assuming that they would likely do Marvin Harrison Jr. with the first pick that we have. Then likely either an offensive tackle in the second round or a quarterback. They might pick up a guy like a Bo Nix. I also like a couple of other ones in here, such as one of my favorites, Jordan Travis, actually, who was pretty consistently good at Florida State. Interestingly enough, going into last season of college football, he was expected to be a pretty high up pick in the first round, but he had a down season where he didn't play quite as good. He is a little bit undersized at 6'1", 212 pounds. However, he does have pretty good running ability. He does have good passing ability. He has a strong arm, and I've seen him make some really good placed deep passes, especially in the end zone, where he's letting his wide receiver compete for the pass. And overall, he would not be a bad pickup in the second or third round as a potential starting quarterback. Obviously, when you pick in the second and third round, that's not a guarantee that they're going to get a shot at the starting position. Sometimes not even being a first-round pick is, like Trey Lance. I mean, we saw that guy picked in the top 5, and, you know, they didn't really ever give him a full chance to be the starter. So there's situations like that where there's a lot more at play than it seems like with these types of things. It's more of picking the guy that has the potential to be great. There's a lot of unknowns always. There always will be, as far as character, how they handle moving up to the NFL. There's a lot of things you can't even see when you're watching football, like how well do they understand the plays that they're running. That's hard to see when you're just watching. That's something only really coaches will know. So there's a lot of tough things there. But I will come out and say it, Jaden Daniels would be my favorite pickup, okay? He's the best passer, best passing stats from last season, and he played in the SEC. So he plays in the toughest division, had the best passing stats. He has the same potential passing-wise as all of the other quarterbacks. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He is likely the best running quarterback out of all of them. I have in my notes here that he's something of a Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson hybrid. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as either of those guys, honestly, but he kind of plays like a Cam Newton with a smaller frame. He's 6'4", a little bit lighter, closer to 200 pounds, so he doesn't have that same beefiness that Cam Newton had. but he's also not quite as nimble and agile as Lamar Jackson. He's a little bit slower than Lamar Jackson as well. His speed is a lot more comparable to Cam Newton. He just has a little bit more of a strong runner prototype than Lamar Jackson does, a lot more similar to Cam Newton, but I feel like he does have that quick lightness that Lamar Jackson has, so he's somewhere in between there as far as his running ability is concerned. But outside of the running, he is a great passer. He also was the most consistent prospect from what I could tell. He didn't have any bad or terrible games. It's mostly like he had good to great games almost every game, and then he had 2 or 3 where it was just a little bit less productive. But there were no games where it just totally fell apart. And most of the other quarterbacks here that are available, I could tell you a few games where they totally just had a terrible day. And Jaden Daniels just really didn't have any of those. Also, again, he's 6'4", so he is tied as one of the tallest prospects available. He seems to make really, really good decisions as well. And then he's not overly eager to run. He has the ability, but he's not looking to run first and throw second. He really gives the pocket and the receivers a chance to get open before he makes that decision to run. I almost feel like he's watching his reads and then also somehow simultaneously watching for a hole to open up. And it seems like every time he runs, it's for a gain. It's never a bad decision when he runs from most of the footage that I could watch. So he is really smart at making that decision. Most of it wasn't designed plays. Most of them were just kind of scrambling when the pocket fell apart, and he is really, really good at that. And for that reason, he can really operate in a less than ideal blocking situation, which I would categorize the Patriots as that. So he is a pretty good fit for an immediate quarterback. Again, just runs when great opportunities present themselves, top tier arm talent, and he has really, really good mechanics. So the only real cons with him is going to be underweight. He doesn't slide. That's another thing. From all the footage that I watched, he really will kind of embrace the hits. He doesn't slide, but he will step out of bounds. Okay, so if he's by the sideline, he can tell that he's basically at the end of the run. He will take a step out of bounds, but he doesn't take that initiative to slide oftentimes. And then in the passing game, it felt like he would have 5 or 6 really good passes in a row. Great decisions, great accuracy. And then there would be mostly overthrows I would see in the kind of short to moderate passing zone. He would kind of overthrow those oftentimes straight over the receiver's head. Or he did have a couple of underthrows as well in those short to medium situations. The deeper passes actually seem to be a bit more accurate. And also he's already 24 years old, which is not the most ideal. Okay, Caleb Williams is 22. He's been good for years, consistently really good. He's never really taken a step backwards. He can make all the NFL throws. He has amazing arm talent, consistency year over year, and he has pretty good speed. Obviously not quite the runner that Jaden Daniels is, but he can run when he has to. The main cons is that he's undersized at 6'1". He holds the ball too long. He lacks the competition when compared to Jaden Daniels. Obviously, he played in the Pac-12, which is nowhere near the SEC. He's a strange person overall, and I know I'm nitpicking at this point, and it seems really mean, but this is what matters. These things do somewhat matter. I mean, he is a strange person, and I feel like it would be a bit of a distraction. And his emotions, that was another issue for me. I feel like the emotions, it's not the amount of emotion that's a problem. It could be, but not necessarily that. I think that it's the type of emotions he had. He seemed to have more sadness and tantrums as opposed to that kind of anger, frustration, and revenge. So it's kind of like unideal emotions compared to the ideal ones that actually help you in your game. It kind of shoots him in the foot, if you will, the types of emotions he gets in those unideal situations. He also overthrows deep balls quite occasionally, and it's pretty significant when it does happen. He does have the arm strength, it's just he places it a little too far. And probably the biggest one for me is he looks for the personal highlight play as opposed to the play that is best for the team. I feel like he overlooks short passes that would be a first down and goes for kind of the home run. And oftentimes those will go well, and other times they will kind of fall short or overthrow, like I mentioned, and that leads to issues. So my pro comparison for him is going to be a Kyler Murray type with his size. He does have not quite as much quickness, but he does have that kind of quickness and agility that Kyler Murray has, and he can run. But at 6'1", I am a little bit concerned there. The next one is going to be Drake May, the other one that could be there at number 3. His pros is that he can make all NFL throws, plus, versus the other two, he can make extremely difficult throws, like a left side rollout into a deep pass. I did see him do that on a couple of occasions, and he is right-handed, so that's a tough throw, and he did it with quite good accuracy. His running ability is similar to Josh Allen. I would say it's also similar to Cam Newton, as that's a similar comparison. It's just a little bit less quick, I would say, than Cam Newton, a little bit less fast. So I put him under Josh Allen instead. He is the youngest quarterback prospect at 21, which is really ideal. He has 3 years to catch up with some of these other guys like Jaden Daniels, for instance. So he could totally have bad years in the NFL for 3 years and then have really good years, and he's just about as old as Jaden Daniels is now. So a lot of time to learn and catch up, or if he plays really great, it's just a longer career of great play. His size is very ideal at 6'4", 230 pounds. He's about the same height as Jaden Daniels, but he has a lot more weight at 230 pounds, so he's going to be likely a lot more durable, although that's sometimes not the case. He threw a lot of deep balls at North Carolina, so that certainly gave us some good footage and a sample size for his deep ball ability. Ball security was great. He had 2 hands on the ball a lot of times when he was getting sacked or trying to evade a defender, which is what they would teach in the NFL. And he has had back-to-back solid seasons at North Carolina, whereas some of these guys have just stepped onto the scene this year and really weren't as good before. Some of the cons is going to be decision-making, where he kind of decides to throw it. It's similar to what we saw from Mac Jones a lot of times, where he's getting sacked and it's like he wants to just desperately try to make something happen, where that's just not the best situation to throw in. He would do that, and that does freak me out a little bit if we did end up with him, to be honest. A lot of times he would just pass it when he had no ability to pass, and it would end up being a near interception or even an interception as he's getting sacked, where, as a coach would likely prefer him to just take the sack when that's the end result. Also, lack of competition at ACC. I would say it's even worse than Caleb Williams, because the Pac-12, to me, is maybe a little bit more talented than the ACC, or at least on par. It really depends. He needs to slide more, similar to Jaden Daniels. A lot of these guys don't know how to slide. He's inconsistent. That's the other thing. He had mostly great games, but there were some bad days in there. And overall, again, the pro comparison is going to be Josh Allen there. So that's kind of my thoughts for the draft. Also, my thoughts on all of these quarterback prospects that are available at number 3. Again, one of those 3 will be available by the time we pick. So I think it's important to break down each of them. We won't have our pick of the litter, but if they like all 3 semi-equally and would be willing to take any of those 3 at the number 3 pick, then I would say do it. I mean, they all have talent. They all have potential. They're all a bit different, but if they all kind of fit in, then that would be a good thing to do this year, because the opportunity might not present itself in future years, whether we're not there to pick and we would have to trade up, or the overall quarterback talent just isn't worth it in that particular draft. I think this draft is a pretty perfect draft to be picking at number 3 when you want a quarterback. So it's hard to pass up that opportunity that doesn't happen every year. Sometimes even multiple years in a row, we'll have a lull of this type of quarterback talent. Now, Caleb Williams, like I said, is likely to go at number 1. And then it's kind of a toss-up between Drake May and Jaden Daniels as to who the Commanders would pick, or perhaps the Commanders would trade that pick away to another team that needs one of those quarterbacks. Regardless, we would be left with either Jaden Daniels or Drake May in the most likely scenario. And from what I've heard, I think the Patriots like both of them. So that is probably the most likely outcome, is either Jaden Daniels or Drake May. And they both have their upside and downside, but both of them are pretty good. Another thing I want to address is one of the biggest issues people had with Mac Jones was kind of the arm talent not being there. Yes, the decision-making was good when there was no pressure and he had more talent around him, but there was a clear lack of ability to make certain throws at certain depths. They oftentimes ran shorter plays because of that. And also just the lack of zip underneath it, where he couldn't just force a bullet in there. It seemed like it was always kind of a floater, if you will, even short passes. I want to put this out there that All three of these guys are not that. All three of these guys have excellent arm strength and deep ball ability. So regardless if we pick any of these guys, it's not going to be another Mac Jones. And that's not saying that it's going to go good or bad, but that's not necessarily a concern, as all of these guys have really solid elite NFL arm talent. So I want to make that clear as well. Now, I know this video is going long, but in the scenario that they don't pick a quarterback, I think that that honestly it's going to be a wide receiver that they would pick again at the number 3 spot. We kind of addressed that in the earlier portion of this video, and that would likely be Marvin Harrison Jr., who really can do it all. I mean, he's just faster. His route running ability is striking. I mean, it's probably some of the best route running we've ever seen. He's 6'4" at 205 pounds, so he is a little bit lighter, which is probably what leads to that quickness. But at 6'4", to be as fast as he is, he can get behind defenders, really talented defenders. And then again, that route running. So if he doesn't go deep and he cuts back, oftentimes the cornerback will fall to the ground or be 5 yards away from him. So he is just a guy that will be good, Marvin Harrison Jr., in my opinion. There's just hardly any way that it wouldn't be the case. I think the only way is injury. So as long as he stays healthy, I think that he is going to be a really good player. So I wouldn't necessarily be upset with that, but it would lead to a lot of questions as to how and when we're going to get our future quarterback, because Jacoby Brissett is in his 30s. Yes, he's pretty good, but you need a young quarterback at this point in the next couple of seasons at least, and I don't think next season's draft is that point. So I just don't know when else they're going to get their guy, unless they like somebody that's going to be available in the second round. But between Bo Nix and some of those other quarterbacks available, they all have their clear-cut flaws, and I think that it would be a big risk to rely on that for your future starting quarterback. So I have a lot of opinions on this. I wanted to break it down, but I think that it's pretty obvious that they're going to pick a quarterback here. And again, that would be Drake May, likely, or Jaden Daniels. That's going to be your two most likely guys that they're going to pick up. If not, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think in the scenario that they trade down, it's going to require 2 or 3 future first-round picks, likely plus another player. Again, this isn't just a typical third overall pick. This is there's 3 elite quarterbacks available, and if somebody trades for this pick, they can get one of those guys. So this is a high-value third overall pick. And I think it's very likely that there would be a lot of suitors that want to get that pick. The Vikings being one of them that I've heard thrown around. There's probably a couple of other teams that would like to get up there as well. But I think that we would likely need an elite young player plus 2 or 3 first-round future picks, which I wouldn't be mad at, right? There is specific trade packages that I would be happy with, and probably the fans would be happy with, because it would be a no-brainer. If somebody offers 4 future first-round picks, then we have to take it. So there is kind of undeniable deals that would just have to be taken. But as long as none of those are on the table, I think quarterback is the way to go. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., but I really don't think that would be smart for all of the reasons I've stated in this video. Anyway, this has been a long one, guys. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Probably my longest talking video I've ever made on this channel. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, what you think of my breakdown and my thought process, and also kind of what you would want to see them do. I'll see you guys in the next video. Be sure to subscribe for all things Patriots, and I'll see you in the next one.